The most disgusting thing about Jude Bellingham being so overhyped for his first touch against Man City was that it wasn't even a good first touch. And what's more than that, it wasn't even his intention. It was clearly overhit. So let's just look at the first touch. I'm not saying the first touch was overhit because it was a big first touch. That would be dumb. That doesn't make any sense. You have calculated big first touches in football all the time. Let's first talk about what size of first touch should have been best for this scenario, right? So in this scenario, a small first touch wouldn't have been the best because Jude Bellingham, he does need to kind of get away from the player. He needs to make a somewhat moderately big touch. So somewhere around here would be best. You get away from your immediate marker, and at the same time, the ball is still easily within your reach. Because don't forget, Bellingham is making a first touch to his side. It's not to his front. So a very big first touch in this case doesn't really make that much sense. Because either he moves laterally, which is not efficient. It's not as efficient as moving vertically forward, or he has to turn his body to chase after the ball. And that makes even less sense when you consider that Ruben Dias isn't that far away. If you make a big first touch, it might go to Ruben Dias. So that's why even if Bellingham had intended the first touch to be this way, it still wouldn't have been a good one. It's too big given the circumstances. If it was a first touch where it was hit in front of him, it would have made more sense. Because it's much easier to move forward like that, right? But it's to his side. It's not that easy for him to get to the first touch, right? So even if he had intended it, it still would have been a poor first touch given the circumstances. Now let's talk about why he didn't intend to make this first touch. Alright, so how do you judge whether a first touch was intended or not by the player? It's not about how big or small it is. As I said, it's perfectly normal for players to make calculated big touches. That happens all the time. So how do you tell whether the first touch was intended or not? It depends on the player's body language, a player's reaction to the first touch. Now, if you look at this case, if Bellingham had intended to make such a big first touch, he would have instantly turned his body around so that his body would have faced the direction of the ball instantly. Because when you're making such a big first touch, you know that you aren't going to be able to cover that distance easily through your lateral movement. That's not realistic. So if he had intended such a big first touch, he would have turned his body around instantly in one fluid motion if that was his intention in the first place. But he doesn't do that because that wasn't his intention. He was intending for a smaller touch, somewhat within his reach, something much more similar to what I mentioned just then. The supposed perfect first touch. If he had made a first touch around here, it would have been the perfect distance for him to get to. It wouldn't have been that hard to him to get through it without turning his body, just through his lateral movement. But look at him. He doesn't turn his body. He only turns his body after seeing that the touch was bigger than he intended. Because then he knew, oh, I'm not going to be able to get it. I have to turn around to run after the ball. I have to turn around to run after the ball and get to it before Ruben Dias gets the ball. So this first touch wasn't even a good first touch. It wasn't even intended. It was overhit. Why is he getting hyped for this? This is completely nonsensical. We have gotten to the point where a player who's supposedly the best in the world does so little over two legs in the two biggest games of the season against the toughest opponents they've faced all season that his PR, that footballing PR, is desperately pushing a poor overhit first touch. Are you kidding me? You look at this entire sequence of play. Vinicius with a brilliant assist. Vinicius first fakes Ruben Dias, and then he sends in an inch-perfect cross. Rodrigo adjusts his body great for the finish. Ederson makes a good save. And then Rodrigo adjusts his body even better, amazingly well for a rebound. This is not an easy rebound to adjust his body to, because it's a pretty quick rebound right back to the body. Rodrigo adjusts his body so easily that he makes it look so easy to score the rebound. I'm not even sure if Bellingham's contribution to this goal was bigger than Carvajal's. Honestly speaking, Carvajal makes an alright pass to Vinicius in the build-up. This is just flabbergasting to me. I can't comprehend this. This is just ridiculous. We've gotten to a point where footballing PR is so important that they are so desperate to push a player that when he ghosts in the two biggest games of the season and does so little over two legs, they are resigned to overhyping a poor overhit first touch. What is going on with football? This is disgusting levels of PR. And I'm sorry, even if you're a Madrid fan, you should be disgusted by this. Vinicius and Rodrigo should be getting all the credit for this goal. Why is Bellingham getting any credit? All he did was make a subpar first touch. This is ridiculous. I'm sorry. If you're not angry by this situation, you're not a true football fan. You're not a true Madrid fan. You're a Madrid Bellingham cultist. You just want to hype whichever Madrid player is getting hyped the most to maximize the chances of a Madrid player getting the Ballon d'Or. And sure, even if you want a Madrid player to get the Ballon d'Or, that's fine. Hype Vinicius. hype Rodrigo, because they actually performed in the two biggest games of the season against Man City. Even if you, for some strange reason, think that Bellingham has been Madrid's best player over the course of the season, at least you should acknowledge that in this play, he did nothing that was worth hyping. He made a subpar first touch. Vinicius and Rodrigo should be getting all the hype for this play. Bellingham does not deserve any hype for the 2 legs against Man City. He was poor over 2 legs. He did nothing. He wasn't even a top 5 Madrid player over 2 legs. Vinicius, Rodrigo, Rudiger, Valverde, I would say Mendy. These 5 players objectively did more against Man City over 2 legs. I'm an Mbappe fan, but I have no issue admitting that Dembele and Vitinha were clearly better than Mbappe over 2 legs. Even in the second leg, I think Mbappe had a good game. But Dembele was clearly the best player in the second leg. Over 2 legs, Dembele was PSG's best player by quite a distance. And I can admit that, because I'm not an Mbappe cultist. I'm not going to hype him to the skies regardless of what performance he has. If a teammate performs better than him, I will admit that. To the real footballing Madrid fans, you should do the same. If you're a Madrid cultist who just wants to follow the PR and be a brainwashed cultist, so be it. It's embarrassing.